I knew nothing about these derailment numbers. I'm stunned by it. That we have thousands of derailments all the time, and how costly it is, and how they're not kept up, and maybe the regulation needs to be there. I think there needs to be, there's a widespread sentiment to have a look at the whole rail industry, what the lobbyists are doing, and what the actual, I heard there were 3 people on that train of how many cars? 20 of which had chemicals in it?
Somebody at the front, somebody at the back, and
does that blow you away? I mean, I know that.
He's perplexed. He goes, did you know that whenever there was deregulation on rail systems, and then after they deregulated them, safety features were gone away. And next thing you know, we have these crashes, and people just don't know how that happened. Did you know that? Maybe a politician to talk about this every once in a while. He was flabbergasted. As a matter of fact, Ducey was still flabbergasted about more information, specifically in the Trump administration, about visiting these sites, which is the next thing.
During the Trump administration, apparently, even when there were derailments, Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao never visited the sites. But what is different about that and this
poison gas.
Well, people just don't trust the government tests because they go, well, it's okay to trust, you can drink the water, you can breathe the air. People don't trust the tests. And so,
yeah, there's nothing that equated to this during the Trump administration. And one thing about Donald Trump, and there were toxic gases that poisoned the town.
There were some fatality derailments where people lost their lives during the Trump administration. Nobody lost their life during this.
Not yet, as the water and the air are all poisoned now. So there's more revelation. So number one, did you know that deregulation leads to potential accidents because corporations don't give a hot damn about what everything that they could be doing to save people's lives or do the thing they do safely? It doesn't matter. They just realized that. And they also just realized that Elaine Chao also didn't show up to any of these accidents that happened under their watch as well. It's almost like they just don't do this stuff when it comes to politicians, but they'll start pointing it out when it comes to the opponents that are then in office. I guess fair game, and maybe this will cause both groups to start doing something about these types of things. But let's not forget this, because this old tweet from 2017, I guess, confirms maybe these guys on Fox and Friends should have seen this, because Trump tweeted this quite proudly. I'm continuing to get rid of costly and unnecessary regulations. Much work left to do, but effect will be great. Business and jobs will grow. He deregulated plenty of things, this being one of them. And it ended up, let's go to this SOT 6, you guys here. And it ended up with these types of things happening and this being explicitly reported. But the folks at Fox never saw this. Watch.
Donald Trump announced that he's planning to visit East Palestine after criticizing the Biden administration's response to the disaster. But did Trump do anything to make the railroads in this country safer? In recent years, railroad companies have targeted federal regulations as a way of reducing costs. Rail workers have blamed lack of oversight and regulation as one of the central causes of train derailments. The Trump administration was responsible for rolling back some of the key regulations that mandated minimum crew sizes and new electronic braking technology for trains carrying hazardous flammable liquids, much like the train that derailed in East Palestine. On top of this, one of the biggest individual donors to the 2024 Trump campaign is Timothy Mellon, former owner of Pan Am Systems, a massive rail company. Pan Am was bought by CSX, an even larger rail company, which donated almost $40,000 to get Trump reelected in 2020. This isn't to say that the Biden administration is any better. It kept these deregulations in place and broke the rail workers' strike that sought to address these exact safety issues. But Trump's record, without a doubt, proves that he's no better.
Pretty odd how that works. If you actually see the breakdown of it, you might come to the conclusion that just in general, unless you force politicians to do something about this, they will say everything's okay. Previous deregulations will stay in place. When people bring up the problem with rail systems, from workers to safety to any of that, it's already there and nothing has happened yet. And once it happens, it's scramble to figure out who to blame and definitely who not to blame, which is not the railway companies and definitely not the fact that they were lobbied to do their bidding, Jackson. There's a lot there. I'm sorry I went that long.
Oh, I mean, like you said, there's a lot there. And I think one of the key things here is that it's typically the wealthier conservatives that don't understand that if you don't, upkeep things and keep your eyes on them, that things may go awry. You know, like if you leave a mill there, you don't make sure that everything's safe, things rust, things break down, people cut corners. You know, this isn't new. This isn't surprising to anybody. However, at the same time, it's true that part of the biggest selling point in Republican rhetoric and Republican politics is that the government's too big and it's reaching in and taking advantage of everything. So, and again, now you have Donald Trump who says, don't cut Social Security, don't cut Medicare. So people could just kind of ignore, at least on the Republican side, that he deregulated this. Because unless Ron DeSantis or somebody else comes out and says, we need more regulation, then this isn't going to matter to Republicans. But at the same time, like you pointed out, Pete Buttigieg taking 3 weeks to hightail his behind up there and show that he cares makes the Democrats look bad, which Republicans can use to say, vote for me instead. And then Joe Biden stiffing the rail workers. You know, so it's just the Democrats' only saving grace continues to be, well, we hope people just don't vote for Trump. You know, that continues to be the only thing going for them, which is pathetic.
At the end of the day, those lobbyists, they'll come after Democrats, Republicans, and independents. Like, yo, we got some money if you want to run for re-election and have a better chance of keeping that nice, cushy job you have of doing nothing for the people that voted for you. And they all take it, and eventually they go, how do we make sure that people don't know this? Brian Kilmeade there brought up lobbyists, and it just might be the very first time he's ever said the word on those airways. Because if he says it more, people might say, what is it the lobbyists do? Who do they affect? And how does this whole thing work? Who writes legislation for our legislators?